Crypt Custodian is a marvelous and delightful adventure about a deceased cat who's forced to clean up the underworld. The game doesn't do a lot to innovate on the genre, but with the appealing art style, lovable characters, satisfying combat, dozens of customizations to your moveset, and a compelling narrative, Crypt Custodian is an adventure that I highly suggest to both fans of cats and Metroidvanias play for themselves. Hey there, I'm CGDannyB and I really like indie games, and I like sharing them with you guys. And today, we're reviewing the newly released indie game Crypt Custodian on Steam. Now before we get into the review, I want to give a huge shout out to the team over at Top Hat Studios and the developer Thompson for setting me up with an early copy of the game so that I could give you my impressions, thoughts, and opinions today. Also, real quick, if you could do me a favor and like the video, it'd really help the channel grow so I can continue to showcase awesome indie games. And of course, this wouldn't be a great YouTube video if I didn't incentivize you to click that subscribe button, so if you do, I'll show you this picture of a cute cat. Okay, here you go. Awesome! Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about Crypt Custodian. After this adorable little black cat Pluto unfortunately passes away, we find our hero making their way down to the underworld. Once you wake up in your new body trying to figure out where exactly you are, you find this nifty little broom. And you want to know what's special about it? Honestly, nothing, really. But it's really good at smashing pots. As Pluto explores the underworld, they'll cross paths with Kendrick, guardian of the afterlife, who's basically the overseer and gatekeeper of the underworld. She's the one who will tell you if you're allowed into the palace or forced to remain trapped outside of it. And after a brief overview of your life, there doesn't seem to be anything stopping her from allowing you into the... Oops? Well, looks like that pot smashing spree sent you on a one-way path to the palace outskirts. And now you're sentenced to cleaning up the afterlife for all of eternity. Now, we can debate whether this is the first sentencing or not later, but Pluto is definitely not standing for it. So now Pluto's goal is to build a team of other souls who were also judged unfairly and stage a raid on the palace. Yeah. This escalated quickly. As you explore the outside of the palace, you'll meet a collection of characters, each with their own story of how they ended up here. What I love about Crypt Custodian's story is just how simple it ultimately is. Sure, we've got some afterlife debating to do here, but really it's a story about a bunch of small animals just wanting to live somewhere nice rather than becoming strays. And we even get a closer look at some of these characters' backstories throughout the game, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the solo developer for Crypt Custodian, Thompson, must be a huge fan of Metroidvanias, seeing as his last two games were also in the same genre. But something unique with Crypt Custodian is that it takes a different approach to the typical 2D platforming of most Metroidvanias. It puts on a more of this top-down isometric perspective, giving the player more ways to move and explore than you'd have on a typical 2D plane. While exploring Crypt Custodian, I was utterly shocked at the sheer size of this map. Every time I thought I'd explored everything there was to see, a brand new area would pop up. From dark yet peaceful meadows, to oceans filled with toxic sludge, abandoned amusement parks, to an old movie theater that just plays the same movie over and over again. And no guys, I checked, it wasn't the Goofy movie. I know, it's pretty sad. Every single one of these new environments would give me new secrets to find, bosses to fight, and challenges to fumble through for 20 minutes until I'd barely make it through. As you're exploring the underworld, you'll find these walls that you'll use as checkpoints. These locations will be used to save the game, equip different perks and upgrades, as well as fast travel throughout this gigantic map. So since your lifelong punishment is to clean the underworld, why not make the best out of it? Take all of that dust that you find and use it like the hard-earned cash this world thinks that it is. Every monster you defeat and pot that you break will give you some dust to turn into the shopkeeper, so that you can unlock new perks for your combat arsenal, as well as a few helpful tools, like major objective markers. Now on paper, this is something I should absolutely hate. A marker that I have to pay for so I can figure out where I'm going? Absolutely absurd. But honestly, it never really bothered me. Crypt Custodian's world is so full of secrets and hidden paths that even when I'm heading to my major objective, I'd find myself snooping for more and more stuff. Often leading me to maybe not my current objective, but definitely one of the major ones. And even if it was blocked off by me not having the correct tools just yet, the pots and monsters along the way were more than enough for me to go back to the shop and purchase the directions to where I could go right now. Another thing that you'll find while sweeping up the underworld are these collectible photographs. As you make new friends who found themselves in a similar position as you'll discover these Polaroids that tell you about their past. Each character has a set of 3 photographs, establishing who they are and how their life came to an end. Now, this is definitely more of a completionist thing and doesn't really affect your progression, but if I could only share just a little bit of the feeling that I got in my heart every time I found one of these new photographs, knowing that I was about to learn something new about one of these adorable little dudes, man, it felt so nice. Sometimes those pictures would put a joyful smile across my face, while other times a truckload of sympathy would smash through my office door, making me want to give them a huge hug through my monitor. If there is one word I could use to describe the exploration within Crypt Custodian, it's freeing. Yeah, there's gonna be doors and paths that you can't get to at the moment, but just wandering the other way, finding a million other cool things, and eventually finding something that'll make you remember that one path from 3 hours ago can feel like you've only been playing for 15 minutes. Now, Even though the exploration is dope as hell, we gotta talk about what it's like to beat the ever-loving snot out of the beings of the underworld in broom-to-face combat. At the start of your adventure, combat is very simple, just you running around smacking dudes with your broom. Now what makes it more complicated along the way is the enemy's wacky assortment of moves and abilities. Most of the early monsters are exactly what you would expect, little pieces of fodder for you to collect money from. But as you progress, these little cretins get nasty. Some of them can explode, launching projectiles all over the screen, while others have rapid-fire projectiles or can jump across the map towards you. Now, picture all three types of these enemies in the same enclosed area. Yeah, it's rough. And it's gonna happen to you. A lot. Because there are these challenge rooms that you'll come across. Some are optional, but I highly recommend doing them for the skill slots, while other rooms are right in the middle of your path, so you aren't just passing through them without a fight. Now I can already hear you talking about how tough this sounds, but don't worry, we've got plenty of upgrades to tip the scales in our favor. As you defeat bosses, explore hidden rooms, and hit up the shopkeep, you'll find a mess of upgrades that you can equip to Pluto to make their arsenal insanely powerful. These upgrades vary from stat boosts to effects upon killing enemies. If you hadn't noticed yet, in nearly all of my footage here, Pluto has this little ring of glowing red kunais around him. That was one of, if not the first upgrade that I got, and I never took it off. I love this thing. I would also run around with increased health and damage, as well as attacks that made enemies explode on death, and probably a bunch more. Now these upgrades are all fine and dandy, but you only have so much space for them. You see, each upgrade costs a certain amount of points to have it equipped. At the beginning, this can make it hard to find that perfect loadout for yourself. But as you progress through the game, you'll find those challenges that I was talking about earlier. Though some of them supply you with the aforementioned upgrades, most of the time you'll unlock skill slots to equip more upgrades in the long run. You'll also find these time trials along your way, where you have to dart around the room, collecting these ghostly clocks to extend your time and win the prize. And most of these are also skill points, meaning the more you complete, the more ways you can upgrade Pluto. And now the ultimate purpose of these upgrades is to make yourself an absolute badass cat, so you can defeat the dope yet challenging bosses. Each area has its own final boss, that essentially is gatekeeping an ability that you can use to traverse other parts of the world. Each one of these encounters felt unique from the rest, introducing new attack patterns, but more importantly, awesome designs. I remember playing Kyle's last game, Islets, and I loved every single boss that it came up against. Regardless of a challenge level, these designs are top notch. And the effort put into making these skill check encounters even cooler than before, Kyle, you're a badass, dude. Amazing job. Now, something else that's really cool is once you defeat the first boss, you unlock the boss rush mode from the main menu. Now at first, doing a boss rush mode with one boss is not much of a rush, but after each boss encounter you complete, the number of bosses in that mode grows more and more, giving you a chance to test your might and battle through all of these encounters all over again. I haven't personally jumped into this mode quite yet, or maybe I did to capture some footage, but this seems like the best mode for players who want to put their skills to the test and mess these big bads up, just like we did back in Kirby Nightmare and Dreamland. The nostalgia's hitting really hard right now. After my roughly 13 hours in game, Crypt Custodian's combat is the major selling point for me. It's insanely polished, simple to learn, difficult to master, and even though most of it's the same 5-hit combo, your choices in how to build your version of Pluto make the game as samey or as different as you want it to be. Last summer at the Guerrilla Collective is when we got our first look at Crypt Custodian, and after seeing that recognizable art style from Islets, I knew I was all in on this next adventure. Being able to dive into a world so much deeper than I could have imagined, getting lost in my own exploration, and bashing enemies' heads into the satisfying foley of broom swigs and shattering ceramics, Crypt Custodian is a fantastic time. As someone who can easily get frustrated from not being able to find my next task in a Metroidvania, Crypt Custodian alleviated that dilemma with a stellar art style, catchy music, addicting combat, and exploration that never got old for me. So if you're ready to clean up the underworld for yourself, Crypt Custodian releases today, August 27th on Steam, Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. Thank you guys so much for listening in on my review of Crypt Custodian. Be sure to let me know if you're going to be picking this one up for yourself or if you might wait a little bit. Trust me, I know more than anyone how crazy our backlogs can get, but I just burden myself by playing new games all the time. Once again, I want to thank Top Hat Studios and most importantly, Kyle Thompson for setting me up with a code so that I could review this game for you guys. This was one of those rare cases where I've had the game for about a month now, and it gave me more than enough time to pace myself and really enjoy the experience. If you enjoyed this review, it sure would be swell if you could give the video a thumbs up. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that engagement really helps the channel grow. And if we want to hit that 4,000 subs by the end of the year, we need more people to see the video. And speaking of those 4K subs, if it's your first time seeing one of my videos and you thought it was decent, maybe even pretty good, why not subscribe for yourself so you don't miss any of my other reviews in the future. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.